Hello, and welcome to the third of our special mini pods for Dying Matters Week. I'm Kirstie Atherton, an independent celebrant based in the Northwest.
And I'm Lyndsey Conquest. I'm also an independent celebrant based in Bedfordshire. And you're listening to Not If, But When.
Oh, Linz, we are right in the middle of our happy place here, aren't we?
We are, yeah,
Talking about
definitely.
funerals, but also talking about funeral readings. Oh,
Yes.
um, right. So tell me, why are they important? Are they important? What do you know about them?
I believe they are important, but I think there's always space within a funeral service for a reading, but it needs to be the right one. It needs to be chosen for a certain reason,
Yeah,
personal to that person. And just, yeah, I think just to include one for the sake of it is not the right thing to do. But the right reading, whether that's chosen by us as a celebrants to give comfort to those present, or whether it's chosen by the family for a particular reason, I think they can just add a really special dynamic to a service.
yeah, yeah. I do too, and I'm very much of the same mindset of you. The funerals that I tend to do in my local area, the majority tend to not have readings in
Right.
because when that question is asked, is there anything you'd like to be read? Is there anything that was particularly important to the person? Any poems or readings? Very often people just look blankly like, no, why would we want a poem read out? And then you get the opposite where somebody will give you, five different poems that they've found that are very generic. And like you, I like it when it's something that's really, really apt for that person.
Yeah.
And actually, I would kind of discourage people, I suppose, gently from just including something for the sake of it, same as you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people, I come across some just think that, or they presume that it's just something that needs to be included. So because
Mm,
the funerals they've gone to have had a poem or reading, and they'll say, oh, so we need to choose a poem. Or a family member might say to the other people at the meeting, you need a couple of poems. Have you looked? Have you chosen one?
mm,
And it's quite interesting. And I find that actually most of the families will suggest including a
right,
poem or reading,
right.
which I find really interesting. And when they do, then I sort of just try and guide them to maybe looking outside the box, perhaps, and looking
Yeah,
at some that might not be the norm. But some people do choose them because they've been part of another family member's funeral, and it's
yeah,
important for them to include it in the next one. And some I like more than others of the regulars.
yeah.
Some I now know off by heart. I literally don't need to look at my script. Some just make me smile when they get chosen, and some just make me sigh a little bit. But they all have a place. All have a place.
They do, and as everything, it's what the family want, isn't it? It's what's comforting to the people who are organising the funeral. It's not for us to have
No.
any opinion on. But the thing we can have opinion on, much, much, much opinion on, and that's what we're focusing on these mini pods, is our own funeral. So I know that I will not even need to ask you. There will be things that you want read at your funeral because
Yes.
I know you. What
Yes.
are some of those things?
well, well, so I wouldn't say that I'm 100% decided
Mm,
on what I would like included in my funeral, but there are some that are, I suppose, that resonate with me, and some that I really, yeah, really like. And a couple of them are based on sort of nature, that they're the sort
yeah.
of readings that um really hit home with me, and I like the sort of imagery that some of them include.
Yeah.
So one of mine is Gratitude by Mary Oliver. Do you know that one?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
um but I've included it only once in someone else's funeral service, and it was for a gentleman who we knew very little about, but what we did know about is that he really appreciated the sort of simple things in life, nature, walks in the countryside, and just
Yes.
being, I suppose, mindful.
Mm.
And there was a very small amount of people present at the funeral, but they were really appreciative and grateful for being a part of his life. So although we
Oh,
didn't have lots to talk about, this Mary Oliver reading on gratitude, it worked really well for that service, but I also love it as well.
gorgeous.
So yeah, that would be one, and we will
Yeah.
post links because it is quite long, so I'm not going to read that one, but it just asks you what you're thankful for, what you're grateful for. You know, what did you hear, what did you notice, what do you
Yeah.
admire, what astonished you. So it talks about sort of life in natural form, I suppose, about birds and
Yeah.
nature and trees and the sea, and it's, yeah, I
It's
really
such
love
a
that one.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a good thing to be reminded of at a funeral, isn't it? Because that is part of what a funeral is for, isn't it? To
Yeah,
give gratitude for having known that person, for the things that that person brought into the world.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So shall I share my next, or do you want to share one of
Yeah.
yours?
Share your
Shall I?
next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, why
So
not?
my next one is When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou,
Oh
which
God,
she
God, I
actually
haven't got to
wrote
watch
for,
Angela.
yeah, I know. She wrote it for the funeral of James Baldwin in the 80s.
Yeah.
But I just think it's just apt because, when you've lost somebody, that person was great to you. They were a huge part of your life, and
Yeah.
I think the words in it are just, they're just beautiful. It's another one that I would have liked to have read today, but it's not the one that I've chosen today. But it
Yeah.
does, there's a bit in it that says, great souls die and our reality bound to them takes leave of us. Our souls dependent upon their nurture shrink, within
Oh,
our minds formed and informed by their radiance. And it just goes on just talking about sort of how life changes when a great person, someone that was so significant to us, dies. But that actually we can take comfort gradually as that grief progresses and we work through our grief as best we can, that we realize that person still existed. They were a huge part of our life. And
yeah.
we are better. It ends with that. We are better for the fact that they existed in our lives. And I just think it's beautiful, beautiful one.
Oh, that is perfection, isn't it? As an idea, it's perfection. But also Maya Angelou, I mean, stone
I
cold
know.
genius. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. The great thing as well with Maya Angelou, I find, is there are a lot of recordings of her reading herself that you can
Yeah.
get on YouTube. And so they are, I mean, to hear them read in her voice is really something, I think. So,
Makes a
yeah,
difference.
I know that you wouldn't be able to share that on Overtest if it was off YouTube, but there would be ways
No.
to share it with mourners, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
Gorgeous, lovely choice, like it.
Yeah. And then my third one and my final one is an extract actually from The Little Prince.
Oh, beautiful. Do
Yeah,
you
so
pronounce the author's name when you do
no,
this?
I'm
Well,
not going to.
I did once, and I had to write it phonetically on my script,
Oh, did you?
and I don't think I did it very well.
I decided that I wasn't going to pronounce the author's name, but I please
Okay.
do look it up. And I'm not going to try. But I mean, I'm sure, most of you are aware of The Little Prince, but it's a story, a sort of coming of age story, I suppose, about the little prince who comes to Earth from a distant planet. And the extract, shall I read my extract now? This is the one that I wanted to share. So shall I read it now, or shall we do yours first and then come back?
Let's do mine and then come back.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah.
actually it's something nice to look forward to. Yeah, so I, similarly to you, have ones that I feel I want to have read, but I definitely know this is going to be a movable feast like yours because
Mhm.
every single week I seem to come across something that I've never heard before, seen before, read before.
Yeah.
I did this list and then it happened to me literally yesterday when I found something which was called Eulogy from a Physicist and I'd never ever seen it before. It's
Ah.
fabulous. It's fabulous.
Oh.
So I might sneakily add that one on when we put it on the website with
Yep.
our choices. My first choice is one that I know we're both familiar with, and it's Jan Richardson's Blessing for the Brokenhearted, which is perfection. So one of the things I know you and I feel really strongly about, and we'll go on to discuss further in future episodes, is using the term celebration when it comes to funerals. So I know that we believe that every funeral has celebration in it, but every funeral should also have the space for sadness in it. And what Blessing for the Brokenhearted does is basically give permission. It just says, do you know what? This is shit.
Yeah.
And that's all right. That's just
Yeah.
something you're just going to have to sit with until you don't
Yeah.
have to sit with it as much anymore. And I think that honesty is really appreciated by people and is really important for people to hear, that it's okay. You know, you and I do very upbeat, in a lot of ways, very life affirming funerals,
Yeah.
with celebratory elements in them. But the last thing that either of us want is for people to think that there is no space for sadness and sorrow and all of those things. So yeah, that's a real classic. I know you've used it recently, Lynn, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. I used it for a funeral that just was just devastating, and
Yeah.
really touched me. And I think the um the the man's wife was just struggling to get by
Yeah.
through the seconds and minutes of the day.
Just to
And
inhale and exhale. Yeah.
yeah, and she just had no idea of what she wanted included in the service. She wasn't able to really verbalize that with
Mhm.
me. It was just too much and too painful.
Yeah.
And I actually, it was you I came to, and I was like, I need something that's just right for her. And
Yeah.
you reminded me of this
Yeah.
one, which I hadn't thought of. And
Yeah.
I think because we come across so many, don't we? And then we get,
Mhm.
but I just, it just worked perfectly. And
Yeah.
actually not just for her, I read it directly to her in the service, looking at her, but it touched so many people.
Mm.
The directors of the company that this man had worked for, it touched them so much as well. And I
Mm.
think it's a really, really special piece of writing, very special.
It really is. And I think it's very prescient now to our death and dying attitudes, because I think some people think that opening the door to having these conversations means feeling okay about it all.
Yeah.
And as much as you and I constantly talk about these things and talk about every day, of course, neither of us feel okay about it because it's
Yeah.
horrible and
Yeah.
rubbish. And we all want everybody that we love to be immortal. Um, and this piece of writing, I think, is a lovely kind of kickback against that. Hey, stay positive, brighter days are ahead.
Yeah.
It just says, you know what, you're not ready for that talk.
Yeah.
Actually, at the
Yeah.
moment, what you're ready for is for someone to say, do you know what, this really, really hurts.
Yeah.
And yeah, love it, love it, love it,
Yeah.
love it. My next one is proper old school classic. It is Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson.
I like
Absolutely.
a lot of her work, and all nature really as well, isn't it? And huge
It
percentage
really
of
is.
birds, lots of bird talk
Yes,
on hers.
which I know is particularly important to both of us
Yeah.
as kind of a bird people. Yeah, I absolutely adore it. I think it's beautiful, and I think as quite someone who thinks of themselves as like sort of quite literary, I think it's literary enough to express that love, but it's also really accessible. It's not something, it's not some John Donne or something that's really, sort of hard to get
Yeah.
into. The other thing that I really, really would like to have read at my funeral, but I only want this read if there's some way for the visuals to appear at the same time. And I actually want this to be read specifically by my friend Ettrick, who actually has already read at a person's funeral, The Gruffalo. And I
No.
want her to read for me Maurice Sendak's Where the Wild Things Are, because it's my favourite book. I find it really, really moving. And I just adore it, about the stretch of the imagination and how the ends of the world don't really exist. And I just love it. And also, I, I'm imagining that my beautiful nephew will be very elderly gentleman by then, and that he will remember all the times that me and him just snug up in a ball together and we read it together. And yeah, I adore it. I adore it. Again, I'd love to read all of these. We're going to attempt to read them and put them onto the website so you'll be able to hear them all. But I have chosen one to read today, and it is Desiderata by Max Ehrmann, which I have never had the pleasure of reading at a funeral before, but I have had the pleasure of hearing it read at a wedding I've officiated. And the person said to me, I don't actually think this is a wedding reading, but I really want it read. So I, of course, said, well, let's do that then.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's my choice. So would you like to do your lovely reading, Linds? And then I'm going to get please listen to your gorgeous voice.
So this is an extract from The Little Prince by somebody called Antoine something or other, because I can't pronounce his surname. Go on, you try. De Saint-Exupéry?
Du Saint-Exupéry, I think so, yeah. Yeah. I think so.
I really should have practiced that to do it justice before, but anyway.
That was a bit of Northern French for you there.
Yeah.
Du Saint-Exupéry.
Exupéry. Okay, so here we go. People have stars, but they aren't the same. For travellers, the stars are guides. For other people, they're nothing but tiny lights. And for still others, for scholars, they're problems. For my businessman, they were gold. But all those stars are silent stars. You, though, you'll have stars like nobody else. Well, what do you mean? Well, when you look up at the sky at night, since I'll be living on one of them, since I'll be laughing on one of them, for you, it'll be as if all the stars are laughing. You'll have stars that can laugh. And when you're consoled, everyone is eventually consoled. You'll be glad you've known me. You'll always be my friend. That's the bit that gets me. I will continue. I will start that bit again. You'll always be my friend. You'll feel like laughing with me. And you'll open your window sometimes just for the fun of it. And your friends will be amazed to see you laughing while you're looking up at the sky. And then you'll tell them, yes, it's the stars. They always make me laugh. That's the end. See, I knew I wouldn't get through that without stumbling in the middle with a bout of emotion.
It's gorgeous, isn't it?
It's lovely.
I love how it's so like philosophically massive, but also just so simple. It's just so effective, isn't it? Gorgeous. And hearing you read it is beautiful. Thank you. That was gorgeous. That was gorgeous. I'm going to give you a whack of Desiderata now then. A totally different vibe. The person who first introduced this to me described it as a 1920s Baz Luhrmann's sunscreen. So, okay.
Love it.
So this is Desiderata by Max Ehrmann. Go placidly amidst the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. For, as far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all people. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially do not feign affection, neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labours and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy.
Oh, it's lovely.
It's gorgeous, isn't
What
it?
a message as well. A beautiful message.
Yeah, I love that. I love it
it.
when people pick something or read something that somebody has written themselves that kind of says, you know, this is what I learned from my life, and I want to gift it to you to remind you that that is there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Gorgeous.
Ooh, gone off on one there a little bit.
Oh gosh, I could do this all afternoon, I tell you, reading.
So
But we will be recording the others, won't we? And posting those so that we can share those with everybody.
Indeed.
So that's something to look forward to. Okay.
What's going on tomorrow for Dying Matters Week, my love?
Okay, so tomorrow we're back with our final mini pod for Dying Matters Week before usual business resumes on Friday, when we will bring you a full-length proper pod on this year's theme, language.
I know, and I absolutely cannot wait. I cannot wait to have that conversation. But before that, tomorrow we'll be chatting about all of the other stuff we think about for our own funerals, of the things that we're calling the quirks and the eccentricities, the things that matter both to us when we're ritualized after our death. So brace, because I, for one, have got more than a few of those things. But until then, remember, dying matters, but so does living.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Blessing for the Broken-Hearted by Jan Richardson. There is no remedy for love but to love more. Henry David Thoreau. Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it is better to have this pain than to have done without this love. Let us promise we will not tell ourselves time will heal the wound when every day our waking opens it anew. Perhaps, for now, it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating, as if it were made for precisely this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it, as if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still, as if it trusts that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom, but will save us nonetheless.
Gratitude by Mary Oliver. What did you notice? The dew snail, the low-flying sparrow, the bat on the wind in the dark, big-chested geese in the V of sleekest performance, the soft toad, patient in the hot sand, the sweet hungry ants, the uproar of mice in the empty house, the tin music of the cricket's body, the blouse of the goldenrod. What did you hear? The thrush greeting the morning, the little bluebirds in their hot box, the salty talk of the wren, then the deep cup of the hour of silence. When did you admire the oaks letting down their dark and hairy fruit, the carrot rising in its elongated waist. The onion, sheet after sheet, curved inward to the pale green wand. At the end of the summer, the brassy dust, the almost liquid beauty of the flowers, then the ferns, scrawled black by the frost. What astonished you? The swallows making their dip and turn over the water. What would you like to see again? My dog, her energy and exuberance, her willingness, her language beyond all nimbleness of tongue, her recklessness, her loyalty, her sweetness, her strong legs, her curled back lip, her snap. What was most tender? Queen Anne's lace with its parsnip root, the everlasting in its bonnets of wool, the kinks and turns of the Tupelo's body, the tall blank banks of sand, the clam clamped down. What was most wonderful? The sea and its wide shoulders, the sea and its triangles, the sea lying back on its long athlete spine. What did you think was happening? The green beast of the hummingbird, the eye of the pond, the wet face of the lily, the bright, puckered knee of the broken oak, the red tulip of the fox's mouth, the upswing, the downpour, the frayed sleeve of the first snow. So the gods shake us from our sleep.
Eulogy from a Physicist by Aaron Freeman. You want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want the physicist to talk to your grieving family about the conservation of energy, so that they will understand that your energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind your sobbing mother about the first law of thermodynamics, that no energy gets created in the universe and none is destroyed. You want your mother to know that all your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of every particle that was her beloved child, remains with her in this world. You want the physicist to tell your weeping father that amid energies of the cosmos, you gave as good as you got. And at one point, you'd hope that the physicist would step down from the pulpit and walk to your broken-hearted spouse there in the pew and tell them that all the photons that ever bounced off your face, all the particles whose paths were interrupted by your smile, by the touch of your hair, hundreds of trillions of particles have raced off like children, their ways forever changed by you. And as your widow rocks in the arms of a loving family, may the physicist let them know that all the photons that bounced from you were gathered in the particle detectors that are their eyes, that those photons created within them constellations of electromagneticity, charged neurons whose energy will go on forever. And the physicist will remind the congregation of how much all our energy is given off as heat. There may be a few fanning themselves with their programs as they say it, and they will tell them that the warmth that flowed through you in life is still here, still part of all that we are, even as we who mourn continue the heat of our own lives. And you'll want the physicist to explain to those who loved you that they need not have faith, indeed that they should not have faith. Let them know that they can measure, that scientists have measured precisely the conservation of energy and found it accurate, verifiable, and consistent across space and time. You can hope your family will examine the evidence and satisfy themselves that the science is sound and that they'll be comforted to know your energy is still around. According to the law of the conservation of energy, not a bit of you is gone. You are just less orderly. Amen.
An extract from The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. People have stars, but they aren't the same. For travellers, the stars are guides. For other people, they're nothing but tiny lights. And for still others, for scholars, they're problems. For my businessman, they were gold. But all those stars are silent stars. You, though, you'll have stars like nobody else. Well, what do you mean? When you look up at the sky at night, since I'll be living on one of them, since I'll be laughing on one of them, for you, it'll be as if all the stars are laughing. You'll have stars that can laugh. And when you're consoled, everyone is eventually consoled. You'll be glad you've known me. You'll always be my friend. You'll feel like laughing with me, and you'll open your window sometimes just for the fun of it. And your friends will be amazed to see you laughing while you're looking up at the sky. Then you'll tell them, yes, it's the stars. They always make me laugh.
Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be. be and be better, for they existed.